this is what makes what you do impossible to emulate, and that is your competitive edge. So you are not competing on price. If you're doing that, you will never break out of whatever level you're at, right? You have to be willing to find other ways to showcase your competitive edge. Welcome to the Designer's Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Kate Bendewald, interior designer, mama, and CEO of a thriving interior design business built on authentic word-of-mouth referrals. It wasn't that long ago that I stepped away from my corporate architecture job to build my own dream, one that would allow me more time with the people that I love, the ability to serve my clients at the highest level, and to make a great living. It wasn't always easy, and I've made my share of mistakes along the way. Fast forward to today, and I've learned a thing or two. This podcast is for you, the inspired, creative, ambitious, and let's admit it, occasionally overwhelmed interior designer who shares this dream of transforming lives by transforming homes. Join me and my guest each week as we walk through practical ways to build an interior design business you love and helps you transform your clients' lives. You can do this. Thank you for letting me spend part of this day with you. Let's get to it. Well, hello there, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Designer's Oasis podcast. This is Kate. If you're new around here, welcome. We talk about all things interior design business related. So I'm so glad to have you joining me today. We are talking about 4 myths around selling. Now, I know because I talk to hundreds, if not thousands, of interior designers, and I know that when it comes to selling yourself, selling your services, selling your brand, that is something that doesn't always come naturally. So I want to start before we get into these 4 myths, telling you a little bit about my own story, sharing my background with this because it hasn't been easy. In fact, it not only wasn't easy, it was very painful for me. So if you go all the way back to episode 1, I kind of share, the episode is titled 3 Core Truths, and I talk about kind of my journey into being a business owner without any business experience necessarily. And I had to kind of figure a lot on my own. And one of those things was how to sell. I knew how to design, right? I have a degree in design. I had lots of really great experience in high-end residential and the commercial world. But once I was out on my own, all of a sudden I was wearing this new hat of having to sell myself to people. And I would get on these discovery calls with folks, and they were painful. They were rambling. They took forever. I didn't have a clear goal, beginning, middle, and end. I was just like, here's my thing. If you want to buy it, go for it. Here's how I work, And there was no emphasis around the value that I bring. There was no overarching big picture plan of what to expect. There was no casting the vision of what life was like on the other side of working together. None of that. It was just really painful and really awkward. And I knew I needed help. So I actually hired a sales coach, and it was one of the best investments I've ever made. And I've learned a lot since then in my own experience, but that initial training, that initial teaching really helped me unlock some important aspects of selling. And it really opened me up to the important things to pay attention to, tone of voice and talking. I also took, and I don't mention this in that episode, but I also took professional voice for women because a lot of us, especially women, have this tendency to end sentences like a question. And when you end sentences with a question, it diminishes your authority. And even though that wasn't necessarily my specific problem, I struggled with landing my sentences and speaking with authority. So instead of ending my sentences, landing them where you hear the tone of voice where you end the sentence sort of in a downshift, that commands authority versus an upswing in your tone of voice, which causes your voice to sound like you're questioning yourself. And so it was not only the content of what I was saying, but it was also the way that I land my sentences with clients. It's with authority. And so all of that was a part of my early education around selling. And I have since built upon that. And I feel like when I get on a discovery call today, or I'm sitting in front of a potential client at a consultation, or I'm delivering a proposal, it feels so natural. And I think what we're going to talk about today, these 4 myths, are going to help share with you some of the barriers that I experienced and how I overcame them. These are also things that I work with the designers inside the membership, and we talk about this as well. But yeah, so it was super painful. Those early days, those discovery calls were especially difficult. I actually recorded with permission, recorded one of my sales conversation and shared it with my coach. And she ripped me a new one, not in a bad way. She was just like, oh boy, we've got some work to do. So, but things really turned around after working with her. And I'm so excited and feel delighted to be able to share some of these learnings over the years with you. So that was about 10 years ago that I did this experience with a sales coach. And so in addition to that, as well as my own experience, I've learned a lot, and I hope that you take something away today that can help you. If you think you can be a business owner and get away without having to sell yourself and sell your services and have selling conversations, you are dead wrong. You absolutely will never grow. You will never expand. You will never be able to get, bigger projects, better clients, the kinds of projects that really light you up, because you're going to always be playing small. Selling is essential to any business owner. Not only let's just take out that initial phase. Let's say that you actually hire someone to do that initial that initial discovery call for you, to do some vetting for you. And I know lots of designers that do that. Who's going to do the selling for you when you're in a design presentation? That's you. That's going to be you. And selling doesn't end once you get the money and the contract, right? Selling continues throughout the client journey. Selling happens when you're in the design presentation and you're trying to share your vision. When a client pushes back and says, I don't know about that, you can have a conversation with them. Once you're comfortable with this idea of selling, you can have a conversation with them that takes that apart a little bit. It says, okay, tell me why, right? And get to the bottom of it and be able to sell your vision, explain why you made this selection, why you made this choice to move this here or that there, whatever the case may be. But my point is, selling is an essential part of running a business, period. Okay, so you might as well get comfortable with it. And I'm hoping that today's episode and these 4 myths will help you start to think about some ways that you might shift your own thinking around selling. And then at the end of today's episode, I have written about this extensively on the blog, and I've got a handful of episodes. So I'm going to share those those blog posts with you. So if you want to read more about this, you absolutely can. Okay, so the number one misconception about selling is that selling is trying to convince someone, right? You're trying to persuade somebody to do something. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. I love this quote by Zig Ziglar. It says, selling is not something you do to someone. It's something you do for someone. Okay. So this is a great lead into myth number 1. Selling has to feel hard or icky. Okay. Yes, selling will feel hard and icky if you're trying to sell something that you don't believe in. The reality is that selling is helping. You have something that your clients need. They have sought you out because they are facing a project of some kind and they feel like they can't do it on their own. If you show up and you're not selling your services, you're actually doing them a disservice. Okay. You have the skills, knowledge, and expertise to help them out. And so if you can start to put on your helping hat, if you just replace the word selling with helping and that feels a little bit better for you, then try that. But if you can put on your helping hat versus your sales hat, I think you'll feel that ick and that sleaze and that slime go away. So one of the things my sales coach talked about is guardrails, and everybody has different guardrails in terms of what they're comfortable with when it comes to selling. Some people have really wide guardrails in the sense that, they're willing to go much further to greater lengths to get a project, where another person might not have that going so far doesn't feel comfortable for them. And so that's your guardrail. And you have to figure out what your personal guardrail is, right? And I believe that over time, your guardrail widens and you gain more confidence, and you're more confident in being slightly more aggressive, but not in a tacky way, right? I'm just talking about really going for it. Okay. And I have an example of that here in a minute. So if doing something feels icky, sleazy, or slimy, you need to find a different way. Okay. So figure out what your personal guardrail is. Know that over time it will widen, it will shift, it will change, but it shouldn't feel icky. You should feel like you are in the process of helping them get clarity on what the next steps are, and just replace the word selling with helping. And I think you'll start to feel that it becomes a lot easier and more authentic. Okay, myth number 2, my beliefs about money don't really matter. Well, the reality is your beliefs about money absolutely matter. Your money story matters. And if you don't have that sorted out first, and that's truly something that I believe most people work on all the time, their whole lives. But if you don't have your money story clear, it's going to be an uphill battle to sell your services. Now, we all have deep-seated beliefs about money, and if they're unhealthy or limited views about money, it can keep you stuck and it can keep you playing small. Look, I am the daughter of a single mother. Growing up, we experienced lots of financial challenges. There was a lot of vulnerability around money. So do you think that I grew up and became a functioning adult having, all the money story figured out, having a healthy relationship with money? Absolutely not. I have had to do tremendous work around my money story because it always felt scarce. And so I brought that in initially. I brought that into my relationship in my business and working with my clients. And it wasn't until I did some work there to get clear on my money story that it really opened me up and freed me to, it was very liberating to separate, not necessarily to separate my money story, but to realize that my money story is not somebody else's money story. Okay. And that was kind of the first thing. But what's even more important here is that you have to believe at your core that what you are selling, the services you are providing, are a total value for what you are what you're offering them for, right? Not a bargain, but that the value is in alignment with the price and your design fees that you are putting out there. So you need to believe at your core that good design can change lives, that it can make people's lives better. It can help people feel happier, more joy. I believe that, right? And so if you are unsure about the benefit of design for people, whether that's in a residential or a commercial setting, I'd start there and start to really get clear on thinking about what's on the other side of working with somebody like you, and what are those benefits that somebody can feel and experience after working with you. And I'm not just talking about those the physical experience, like, oh, something's more organized, there's better flow, whatever. All those things are true, but how will a client feel in this space? How will the people who enter this space feel and experience it? How does design impact their lives afterwards? So you have to believe at your core that good design can change lives. You need to believe that 100% that the services you are offering and the price that you are putting out there for them is worth every penny. Okay. I was working with a designer who had a proposal prepared for a client. She was getting ready to send it, but she wanted to talk to me about it. And she was hesitating to send it because she knew what her client's occupation was. And she had a belief that the client would not be able to afford her, that the client didn't have the money for this because of what her occupation was. there's a preconceived idea about her occupation and how much money they make. And she believed it would be cost prohibitive based on that information. So her money story was telling her to reduce her fees to make it more affordable for the person because she wanted the job. The reality is that's not her client's money story. That's her money story. Your client's money is none of your business. Your clients are grown-ups. Your clients can decide what they can afford and what they can't afford, not you. It is none of your business. If they can't afford you, there is a designer out there who may be at a different place in their career that they can't afford. And that's going to leave you the ability to stay opened up for a client that is going to be perfectly aligned. Okay. But your client's money is none of your business, period. Let your clients decide for themselves. You put together proposals that make sense based on the scope of work, based on your experience level, and based on your expertise. And you present it, period. Hey, designer, are you tired of wasting precious time with prospective clients who are not a right fit? Do you experience imposter syndrome because you know the back end of your business is kind of a hot mess? Perhaps you're experiencing growing pains and you don't have the tools, resources, or team to support you. I get it. I've been there. As an ambitious interior design business owner myself, I know the roller coaster ride this can be. Over the years, I've learned a thing or two about running a profitable word-of-mouth design business, and I want to help you find success too. How would it feel to wake up and face the day knowing exactly what to focus on next, having a roster of enthusiastic clients, including a paid waitlist, and having the space, time, and creative energy to develop projects that you are proud of and are portfolio, if not press-worthy? I want to invite you to learn more about the Interior Designer's Business Blueprint, a business coaching program designed exclusively for interior designers who want to serve their clients at the highest level while making good money, but without the burnout and overwhelm. If you're ready to get off the roller coaster, you don't have to do it alone. Join me inside the Interior Designer's Business Blueprint and get the tools, teaching, and community you need to pave the way for an interior design business your clients love and you are proud of. To learn more, grab the link on your audio player or head to designersoasis.com/blueprint. That's designersoasis.com/blueprint. Myth number 3, a no means that there is something wrong with me or my offer. So you send a proposal and you either get crickets or you get a response that gives you that ubiquitous, oh, we've decided to go in a different direction response. Okay. What you might experience is a flood of emotions saying, oh, I overpriced myself, or it was something I said, or just this slew of internal voices coming in and telling you what you did wrong or what's wrong with your proposal. And what I want you to do when you are faced with a no, meaning they don't want to work with you or they don't want your full suite of offerings, whatever the case may be, I want you to instead get curious. Getting curious is one of the most powerful things you can do in your business. Is not just taking something at face value, but digging deeper. I talk about getting curious whenever it comes to red flags. We had an episode a number of weeks ago about red flags, and this is my biggest response, is to get curious. Okay. Same idea, but here you're taking this idea of getting curious whenever it comes to receiving a no. Maybe it's that you haven't communicated your value really well. Maybe there's something that your client missed about the process, and it needs a clear understanding of what to expect, what the deliverables are, what the timeline might be. Maybe they just simply need more information or more reassurance. Maybe you haven't done the best job of painting the picture of life on the other side of working with you. There could be a number of reasons why a client says no, and if they don't give you a specific reason, it's super important that you take a minute and just ask, I appreciate you getting back to me. Do you mind sharing what your reason is for deciding to go in a different direction? There's no harm in asking, right? The worst case scenario is they don't respond. Okay, so what? They don't respond. Best case scenario is, or excuse me, next case scenario is that they respond and it's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate, excuse me, not question. It's a legitimate issue or concern. Maybe it's not an alignment. Maybe they, have somebody else that they feel more connected to. Maybe it is a pricing thing, and it's not going to work, but at least you have some information that helps guide you the next time. And it may or may not be beneficial information. Best case scenario is you get the opportunity to come back and say, counter that or provide more information or paint it in a different light or clarify some things for your client. But I'm not going to say don't take no for an answer, but I'm going to say don't take no at face value. Get curious and find more information. It might not have anything to do with you or your offer. It might be that there's just a lack of information and you need to clarify some things. I want to share a quick story with you, and it sort of relates. In this case, my client actually did tell me in her initial email why she decided to not go with us. I didn't have to reach out and ask her. If she had, then I would have followed up and I would have asked, can you please elaborate on your decision? But in this case, she told me. So I'm going to read you her email and then I'm going to read you my response. This is an example of how you might respond to a client that says no to you. They have an objection, and how you could respond. So I actually won't read the client's full email, but essentially she replied and she said, I think we've decided to go with a designer that our builder has worked with before. Crystal clear why she decided not to work with us. It was a really hard decision, especially because you and your team are so amazing what you do. I was wonderful to meet you. Blah, blah, blah. I'll recommend you. All the best. It was an honest and kind response, but I was gutted. This was a project. She hadn't even taken the chance to meet me in person to do the paid consultation, because her contractor was recommending a designer, and that just seemed like the path of least resistance for them. So what I did, I will link to this blog post in the show notes if you're curious to read the whole thing. But I really wanted this project. It was an historic renovation. It was in a neighborhood that I was very familiar with and I had a connection with. I really liked the clients. They were just kind people. And I wanted this project, not even because I had time for it. I was so busy, but it was just one of these projects that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. It was just a cool house, and what they were doing was exciting. Here's my response. So I decided to try something new. Originally, I had been trying to sell her on this idea of, my typical process, a 2-hour paid consultation. And so what I did instead was this. I said, hi, I appreciate you want to find the best fit for you and your project. I'm not one to, in quotes, fight for a project typically, but every now and then a project comes to our doors that really lights us up as designers. Yours is one of them. If your decision is not final, I would respectfully love to still be considered for your project. We would happily offer a 1-hour complimentary consultation followed up with a proposal. I'm going to pause here for a second. You notice that I'm switching gears here, right? I'm trying something different just to see what works. It's like, okay, you don't want to pay for a 2-hour consultation. Let's do a 1-hour. I probably, doing this today, would say a 30-minute consultation, complimentary. There's no risk, just to get the chance to meet them and see the project and provide a proposal. So no risk to them. Okay, so then I go on to say, I've enjoyed many successful relationships with builders, architects, and contractors over my career, and assure you I would aim to build a solid relationship with you and your team. So there I am directly addressing her objection, which is she wants to work with somebody that her contractor is used to working with. And then I go on, and I think this might have been the tipping point. If you can include a testimonial of any kind, this is a great opportunity for you to do it. So what I said is, one contractor left this review. Quote, working with Kate on this job is one of the most pleasant kitchen remodels I've completed. She's very detail-oriented and organized, all the while designing with the client, end quote. And I finalized this email by saying, I would welcome a phone call if you'd like to discuss or schedule a time for us to come by. Respectfully, Kate. So truth be told, this was a very vulnerable email. I didn't want to come across as too eager. I certainly wasn't. I had more work than I knew what to do with. But I really liked them and I knew this would be a fun project. Long story short, they accepted my offer for the complimentary meeting. I talked with them. I gave them a proposal and we ended up getting the project. So had I left the no at no, I wouldn't have had that job. So you have to keep in mind whenever you're getting objections, when somebody says no, that you need to get curious, dig in a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong with you or your offer, but it at least can provide you with the opportunity to gain more information, gain knowledge, and sometimes counteract that and switch and get them to flip their decision. Okay, so let's wrap up with myth number 4. And I love this one. I definitely struggled with this very, very early on, especially when there were, it was in the heyday of these kind of online design companies. And myth is, I can't compete with, or quote, cheap or online designers or free design services offered by retailers. Oh boy. Yeah. So $99 for a room design, right? We have seen those types of services offered out there. And let's be honest, you get what you pay for. So your competitive edge should not be on price. Full stop. Rather, your competitive edge is based on the experience that you give your clients. And if you can create an experience for your clients that is cannot be mimicked, cannot be mirrored by somebody else, that is your competitive edge. And this includes your area of expertise. So if you're an expert on a certain area, this is included in giving your clients this experience. So focus on creating an experience that cannot be replicated, because nobody can compete on that. So maybe your differentiator is your area of expertise. You need to be able to articulate the value that you bring in that area and how it's different, and declare that promise. So in my business, we want to make the design process as effortless and seamless as possible for our clients. It is built on the model of working in high-end restaurants and wanting to really delight and please and host our guests in a way that is warm, efficient, friendly. I want them to walk out with their bellies full. This is back when I was waiting tables, bellies full, laughing, having had a great time. And I'm not making their life harder. I'm doing everything I can to make life easier during a project. Does that mean it's going to be seamless? Absolutely not. But that is our goal, is to delight our clients every step of the way. You may be a designer and you've got an area of expertise that you really want to showcase. Maybe you're an art or an antiques enthusiast. And yeah, I botched that word, enthusiast. And you want to showcase the fact that you have an extensive database of sources. You've got a big old Rolodex of people that you can call or call on, who are antique dealers or art dealers or whatever the case may be. For you young folks out there, a Rolodex is something us old folks used to have, that is these little cards with pieces of paper, and you'd flip it and it would have people's contact information. Boy, I'm making myself sound old right now, but yes, I just made a Rolodex statement, but you get the idea. Okay, maybe you're a color expert, so you can bring to the forefront your expertise when it comes to color. Color is such an emotional component in design, and you know the difference between 50 shades of white, okay? And so you're able to bring that expertise to the table. Maybe you are a designer who wants to showcase and put at the forefront environmental and ethical sourcing practices. So you want to talk about what your promises are. I recently was on Whole Foods responsible sourcing website. I will link to this because I think that that model and the way that they talk about responsible sourcing can be such an inspiration for you as a designer. And what if you took the same model and put it into design? And I'm not saying that you go like mimic this, and I'm not suggesting that you put this forefront of your business unless that's actually what you're doing. I think we all have a responsibility to do responsible sourcing, but if this is your area of expertise, I think it's really important that you highlight that. But Whole Foods y'all, Whole Foods responsible sourcing website is an incredible point of inspiration to look at this as an example. By the way, I always love looking at businesses and industries outside of interior design for inspiration. Everybody knows that Southwest Airlines, although in recent months this is questionable, but historically they've been known for their incredible brand that they have. This is just one example, but the idea is, they say so you can feel good about what you're putting in your body. What if you took this idea and flipped it on its head and said, so you can feel good about what you're putting in your home, right? I actually am inspired to look more into responsible sourcing practices for interior designers, just based on having read this website. So delighting clients every step of the way, that is my signature. And in my program, the Interior Designer's Business Blueprint, I teach my entire process from onboarding to selling to design, all the way through installation. And in each course, I teach designers how they too can find ways to delight their clients. And this is what makes what you do impossible to emulate. And that is your competitive edge. So you are not competing on price. If you're doing that, you will never break out of whatever level you're at, right? You have to be willing to find other ways to showcase your competitive edge. Okay. Couple of resources I want to share with you, and these are all going to be linked in the show notes below, but there are a couple of blog posts that are related to this topic, and I wanted to just point those out for you. First, an abundance mindset, 3 ways to shift your mind towards abundance. Great one to start with. If you want to read more about the example that I was just sharing with my client, it's a personal story. I didn't take no for an answer. The third blog post is called 5 follow-up strategies to get more interior design clients. Follow-up is such a huge part of the process. And I know that is something that can feel icky, and your guardrails might be really narrow when it comes to that. But if you can come up with a follow-up strategy that feels good and warm and authentic, that's going to be really important to helping you get past objections. So check that one out. And then finally, 3 ways to stop doubting your design fees. All right, friends. Well, that's all I have for today. We're going to have all the links to what we mentioned today in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for letting me spend part of this day with you. If you're loving this podcast, please share it with a friend who you think might also love it. Or perhaps you can take just 30 seconds to open your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. And if you have just an extra minute, go ahead and leave a review. This helps me so much, and it helps other designers like you to find the podcast. It also adds fuel to my motivation to keep making great episodes just for you. However you choose to help, please know I appreciate you so very much. Thank you, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.